elections which put governments in place give us a sense of what citizens expect from their political leaders. But what do citizens want from corporations? The Edelman Trust Barometer provides some clues. 70% of Indian respondents trusted business corporations, whereas 61% of the Chinese did and only 46% in the US. While 88% of the Chinese trusted their government, only 44% of Indians and 40% of US citizens trusted theirs. But the finding which should make business leaders sit up is that those citizens do not trust governments much. They want government to step in to regulate business corporations to make them behave in a responsible manner.
Welcome back. You're watching Capitalism in Crisis. We're discussing the role of the government. I want to get in on this discussion of how much of government help is too much of government help. And I want to pick up on the point that Pramod was talking about. The IT sector has created millions of jobs in this country. It's a sector that's growing in excess of 20%. When the government steps in and says, okay, the sun is finally going to set on a certain policy that was giving you tax benefits, is that the government stymieing growth? Is that the government saying, we've done our job and now get on with yours?
Well, the fact is, why just the IT sector? Every sector can have a claim for help. What about the hundreds of millions of farmers in India's agriculture sector? What harm have they done to the system to not deserve a similar appreciative look from the government? So I suspect, depending upon the level of the crisis and the timing, any sector is susceptible to government intervention for a bailout. But I think in general I endorse what Rajiv was saying, that the less that government gets involved in bailing out known risks, the better.
I find we talk about business and government now, and Pramod mentioned this, that you need to give concessions that seem to help one part of industry and hurt another part of industry. So couldn't industry represent itself, meaning associations that represent industry's interests need to be able to include the needs of all different sectors within industry? Are they truly representative of all members?
Are they truly representative, Mr. Myra? Let's be honest here. Are they truly representative?
That's a test they have to answer, and we simply say from the Planning Commission, and I work for the industry sector, I said we want to have industrial policy, manufacturing policy, which has to be evolved with the inputs of the people who are facing the music. I mean, they understand what the stones are underfoot and what constraints there are. So policies must alleviate those constraints. So we have to have you in the policy making process. But in that, it shouldn't be you asking for a favor for your company or for your side. So we have come to them, and they have recognized, I must say that the associations, that they got to also build up to be responsible institutions in the new era.
Okay, on the issue of allocating natural resources, pricing natural resources, because this has been a huge debate that we're having in this country. In an emerging market, when we're asking for investments, both domestic as well as foreign, the government in a sense is pushed into a corner, saying that if you don't have a more sort of corporate-friendly policy, then you're not going to be able to bring the big bucks in. For instance, the land acquisition policy. And now industry is saying that the land acquisition policy that is being put in place is going to make the costs exorbitant. It's going to actually make industry less competitive. Jay, you're shaking your head in denial, but even your government, Inurissa, has come out and said that we have a land acquisition policy in place which is very, very fair, but that's not what we hear from farmers who are agitating on Foxco's land.
Well, yes, land acquisition is a problem throughout the country. And yes, the new proposed land acquisition bill will in fact increase the cost of land to be acquired. But I want to posit 2 points here. First of all, the cost needed to go up. Because it was not a win-win scenario for farmers. Point number 2 is that the cost of land, even if it goes up fairly significantly, is not a significant part of most of these projects. Even if the land cost goes up twice, thrice, 4 times, it is not a very significant part of most of these mega manufacturing projects. So I think that the idea that this will make these projects unviable is vastly exaggerated. So I think a win-win situation will require more to be paid for land, but also to provide that land can be acquired and that it cannot be vetoed by a small group of people.
Myra, we've talked about middles, we've talked about the third path, we're talking about building credible, autonomous, independent institutions. But till that happens, what are we faced with?
I would say if we need partnership, we need 2 hands or 3 hands to clap here. If the industry association were to come and say, we can help you convene these platforms and participate in a proper way by listening to the others who are on the platform with us and not denigrating them. ये समझते नहीं है, they don't understand, please listen to us, let's tell you what happens elsewhere in the world. What do they know? I mean, these are the sort of conversations that unfortunately do happen.
Let me make a quick point. In our system, it would be most efficient and it would be fastest if government actually got on with it. But that's not necessarily how it's always going to be. Let me give you an example. The Election Commission is one such independent institution whose credibility 20 years ago was a bit suspect. But nobody today seriously questions the credibility of the Election Commission. The government had very little to do with that. It started with an internal reform by a crusading Chief Election Commissioner who then set new standards which have held up through several successions. Now take a look at the civil society agitation against corruption. Why did that happen? It's because government abdicated. Government dropped the ball, there was a vacuum, somebody stepped in, made a cause out of it and has now today compelled the government to act after 4 decades. So I think this may take a little longer if government doesn't do it, but ultimately I have faith in our system that somebody will step up to the plate and force action.
Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who should write the new rules of the game?
No, this is the $100 billion question that will be asked by everybody in Delhi. And I really hope that somebody in government, it has to be the government, Shereen. Look, let's be really straight on this. The government has to take the lead. They have to realize what's good for this country. They have to go out and fix the problem. I mean, all of us can be on the fringes and advise and talk and participate and cooperate. But there has to be real leadership there that says, you know, we are in a crossroad. We need to fix this problem, and these are the ways to fix the problem. And if the government doesn't take the initiative, you know, we can be in TV studios till the cows come home, and we'll still be talking.
Eventually the problem and the solution lies with the government, doesn't it?
It does. I'm not sure the solution lies. The problem today does lie in large part with the government, but the solution I hope will be a joint one.
Okay.
While I agree with Arun that associations should come forward, I will just make one point. Associations do come forward, but the time it takes to build a public-private partnership with the government is so long that the concept of speed and time fades. It's years before we see any real results, and we have to find a way out of that.
Okay, we have to find a way out of that. Gentlemen, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Appreciate you joining us here on this episode. So at the end of it, it is going to be the government that will set the game, the rules of the game. It is going to be the government that should hopefully bring in sensible legislation that will rein in the private sector, self-regulation, a middle path as far as regulation is concerned and regulatory bodies are concerned. Those are going to be issues that we will continue to discuss and debate here. But appreciate all of you joining us here on this show. Many thanks indeed.